Your real mommy is too weak and sick, Lily. She doesn't love you at all. She never wanted you, sweetie. I am your real mommy. Always remember that. And that woman, she is just staying with us temporarily. Soon, we will chase her away, and it will be just the two of us." Those words, coming through the baby monitor speaker in a chilling, ingratiating whisper, froze me in the middle of the dark hallway. On the evening of my daughter Lily's 3rd birthday, I realized that the woman I trusted unconditionally was systematically and cruelly erasing me from my own child's life. But the true nightmare awaited me inside the nursery when, with a sinking heart, I pushed the door open and saw what exactly she had done to our family photo albums. However, let us start from the beginning. My name is Rachel. I am 28 years old, and before the birth of my daughter, my life seemed like a flawless, glossy snapshot from a prestigious design magazine. My husband Brian and I had been together since our university days, a classic, time-tested story of pure and strong love. We met during our 3rd year of college, when neither of us really knew what we wanted out of life, and together we walked the long path from a tiny rented studio on the outskirts to financial prosperity. Brian worked as a lead analyst at a major international financial firm, managing colossal investment portfolios. I was a successful landscape designer, creating unique gardens. My projects won local exhibitions, and clients booked appointments months in advance. We complemented each other in everything. Brian was rational, structured, and tough in business, but remarkably gentle with me. I brought creativity, chaos, and beauty into his life. To everyone around us, our union seemed like a monolithic rock that nothing could shatter. A year before the pregnancy, we took a pivotal step. We bought a spacious, sun-drenched 2-story house in a quiet, expensive suburb. This was our family nest, featuring large panoramic windows overlooking an ancient garden, a cozy fireplace in the living room, and a massive attic. For a whole 6 months, I personally designed and furnished the nursery for our future baby. I selected the softest pastel tones, hypoallergenic furniture made of natural wood, ordered handmade textiles, and painted a fairy tale forest in watercolors on one of the walls. Brian and I would sit on the rug in that empty room for hours, hugging, making grand plans, arguing about whom our daughter would look like, and choosing her name. We were absolutely, boundlessly happy. Everything changed on an endlessly long, terrifying day that was supposed to be the best day of our lives. The labor started 2 weeks ahead of schedule. It was incredibly grueling, painful, and lasted for almost 30 hours. I remember every minute of that agony. I remember the rising panic of the doctors when the fetal monitor showed that the baby was experiencing acute hypoxia due to a sudden umbilical cord entanglement. It all ended with an emergency C-section under general anesthesia. When I finally regained consciousness in the intensive care unit, instead of the expected euphoria, the instant flash of maternal love, and the tears of joy that mommy bloggers write about so cloyingly, I felt only one thing: a ringing, icy, paralyzing emptiness. It felt as if I had been hollowed out from the inside, stripped not just of my baby, but of my entire soul, all my emotions, and my feelings. As soon as we returned from the hospital to our beautiful, once cozy house, a thick, dense, impenetrable wall began to rapidly close in around me. This wasn't the ordinary fatigue of a new mother that could be cured by a couple of hours of deep sleep. And it wasn't the banal baby blues that pass on their own a week after giving birth. It was a severe, deep, clinical postpartum depression. The surrounding world lost all its colors in a single instant, becoming a dirty gray, ugly, and alien place. All sounds reached me as if through a thick layer of filthy, stagnant water. I could sit on the edge of our wide bed for hours, staring blankly at a single point on the wall, unable to even lift my hand to brush my hair. I felt completely helpless, empty, worthless, and entirely alienated from my own body. The loud, piercing, demanding cry of little Lily in the next room didn't trigger a maternal instinct to feed or hold her close. Instead, it evoked a panicky, sticky, suffocating terror. Every attempt to approach the crib was accompanied by a paralyzing shame and a destructive thought. I am a monster. I am defective. I am a bad mother. I feel nothing toward my child except fear. Brian, despite all his sincere love and colossal desire to support me, found himself caught in the cruel grip of circumstances. He practically lived at the office, working around the clock. He had to leave for endless business meetings, as our medical bills after the complex surgery, expensive medications, and a huge mortgage demanded an enormous amount of money. He physically couldn't afford to take paternity leave or even a short break. He returned home late in the evening, his face gray with exhaustion, and tried to hug me, but ran into my blunt emotional detachment. My husband simply didn't understand what was happening to me. In his mind, depression was something like a prolonged bout of blues, tantrums, or a banal lack of sleep. "Rachel, you just need to pull yourself together. All women go through this," he would often say, going to sleep on the living room couch just to get at least some sleep before another 12-hour workday. Our once flawless family was rapidly going under right before our eyes. And then, when I was ready to finally give up, throw my hands up, and perhaps take the most terrifying step of my life, she appeared at the doorstep of our house. Brian's mother, Martha Miller. I remember her arrival down to the smallest, microscopic details, as if it happened yesterday. Tall, trim, with her gray hair styled immaculately, strand to strand, wearing an elegant sand-colored cardigan. She smelled of expensive French powder, lavender soap, and fresh home-baked goods. She walked into our chaotic, neglected house, where mountains of unwashed dishes piled up in the kitchen and heavy tension hung in the air, and she brought with her an absolute, unshakable, ironclad calm. "Oh, my poor, exhausted girl," Martha said softly, with deep, maternal compassion, the moment she stepped across the threshold of the living room. She walked up to me, gently took my cold palms into her warm hands, softly hugged me by the shoulders, and for the first time in months, I felt a saving warmth spread through my tormented body. "Look at you, Rachel. You are transparent. There is nothing left of you. Your eyes. There is so much pain in them. Don't worry about anything anymore, do you hear me? I am here. I will take care of everything, and you just need to rest, get treated, listen to the doctors, and recover your strength. You are not alone." She brought 2 huge, old-fashioned leather suitcases with her, and without unnecessary questions or ceremonies, moved into our guest bedroom on the upper floor for an indefinite period. At that nightmare moment, Martha seemed to me like a true savior, a guardian angel sent by the universe itself to glue back the shattered pieces of our lives. Brian, returning home that evening, was literally beaming with happiness and an immense, unbelievable sense of relief. For the first time in a long time, our house was filled with the aroma of normal, delicious food, the floors were washed, and little Lily was sleeping quietly and peacefully in her crib. Brian walked into our bedroom, hugged me tightly, nearly cracking my bones, and whispered in my ear, "Look, Rachel, what a golden, simply saintly mother I have. We are incredibly, phenomenally lucky." She dropped all her business in Maine, left her cozy home, her friends, her familiar life, and came here to nurse us, to help us get back on our feet. "Everything is definitely going to be fine now, honey. You can finally relax and hand over the reins to her. She knows what to do." Martha indeed launched a phenomenal, astonishing amount of activity. She completely, totally subjugated our entire household. Within a few days, our house turned into something resembling a sterile operating room. The floors gleamed so brightly you could see your reflection in them. Clothes were perfectly washed, ironed, and arranged in neat stacks in the closets. There was always fresh chicken broth and dietary meals prepared specially for me in the refrigerator. But the absolute, sole center of her new universe became little Lily. Bottle feeding strictly on schedule, endless rocking through the night when the girl suffered from colic, changing diapers, the first strolls in the stroller along the shaded alleys of the suburb. Martha did not step away from her granddaughter for a single second. She did this with such a frightening ease, maniacal devotion, and iron discipline that initially I only thanked her boundlessly in my heart, obediently taking the antidepressants prescribed by my psychiatrist and trying to just sleep for more than 2 consecutive hours. It seemed to me that this was what true family support looked like. How cruelly mistaken I was. A year passed. It was a long, grueling year of fighting my own head. Thanks to regular psychotherapy, properly selected medications, and what seemed to me at the time to be a reliable, ironclad rearguard in the person of my mother-in-law, the black fog in my head finally began to gradually dissipate. My vital energy, clarity of thought, appetite, and most importantly, an insurmountable, hot, pulsating desire to finally become a full-fledged, real mother to my growing daughter were returning to me. I wanted to make up for every missed day, every lost moment of her infancy. I remember that beautiful, warm May morning perfectly. For the first time in a long time, I woke up without a feeling of suffocating anxiety. I looked out the window at the blooming flowers in the garden and smiled a genuine, forgotten smile. There was crystal clarity in my head. The illness had receded. I had made it. I was ready to feed Lily myself, to walk with her in the park myself, to read her bedtime stories, and to put her to sleep, feeling the warmth of her tiny body. But the moment I took my first, confident step toward my own child, I slammed headlong into an invisible but completely deaf, icy, and impenetrable wall that Martha had managed to skillfully erect around my daughter during my mental absence. It happened during an ordinary breakfast. I walked into the kitchen, which was flooded with soft sunlight. Martha was sitting at the table, carefully feeding 1-year-old Lily squash puree from a silver spoon. The girl was babbling joyfully, smearing the puree all over her chubby cheeks. I felt an intense, painful longing in my chest to experience this intimate moment of closeness with my daughter myself. "Martha, good morning!" I smiled softly, stepping closer to the high chair and reaching out my hands to take Lily. "You know, I feel absolutely wonderful today. Let me feed Lily myself today and take her for a walk in the park. The weather outside is just amazing, and you need to finally get some rest. Go into the city, do some shopping, or just relax at a spa. You've earned this break." Martha froze for a second. Her silver spoon hovered in midair, just a centimeter away from the baby's open mouth. My mother-in-law's face took on a strange, strained, almost stony expression for a fleeting moment, and something resembling a cold, prickly rage flashed in her eyes. But a split second later, that expression vanished without a trace, as if it had never been there. She smiled her usual, sugary sweet smile, carefully but very firmly pushing my hand away with her elbow. "Oh, Rachel, dear, good morning," she said in a low, almost tangible tone of concern. "You must be joking. It is a terrible, treacherous wind outside today, and the radio reported a storm warning for allergy sufferers this morning. You know how delicate our Lily's nasopharynx is. She will catch a cold in an instant, and we will end up in the hospital again. You are still too distracted after your severe illness, dear. What if you forget to zip up her stroller canopy or put the wrong socks on her? Let me walk her instead. It's absolutely no trouble at all. It's a joy. You should go, lie down, read a book, save your strength. You must not overexert yourself under any circumstances. What if a relapse of depression occurs? We are all so afraid of that. Brian worries so much about your mental health." There was such an ironclad, suffocating care in her voice that any objection on my part would have looked to an outsider like the height of ingratitude, selfishness, and moodiness. Martha spoke so calmly and confidently, as if stating an obvious fact confirmed by a panel of doctors. I was an invalid, a mentally deficient creature incapable of taking care of the primitive needs of my own child. And I, shamed by my sudden impulse and feeling a stab of old guilt, backed down. I went to my room. And that was my strategic mistake. I did not yet know that this was merely the beginning of a large-scale, thoroughly planned siege, the goal of which was my complete expulsion from my daughter's life. Summer turned into autumn, but the suffocating atmosphere in our house only thickened, turning into a sticky suspense. My attempts to regain control over my own motherhood turned into a grueling, daily covert war in which I lost one battle after another. Martha acted incredibly subtly. She never shouted, never threw banal kitchen tantrums, and never argued with me in front of Brian. Her weapons were soft undertones, sympathetic, heavy sighs behind my back, and that very sugary, paralyzing care against which I simply had no effective antidote. Every time Lily stumbled, bumped into something, or started crying in the living room, and I, obeying a natural maternal instinct, rushed to her to hold her close and comfort her, Martha would literally materialize out of thin air. She moved around the house silently, like a snake in thick grass. "Shh, quiet, my little droplet. Grandma is here. Grandma is near," she would whisper, deftly, with a cat-like motion, wedging herself between me and the crying child, softly but resolutely brushing me away with her hip or shoulder. "Rachel, dear, please step aside. Your own hands are shaking. You are too nervous after your strong medications. The baby feels all of this. Your panic is transferring to her. You are only scaring her more. Go to your room, drink some herbal tea, calm down." Lily, obediently snuggling against Martha's shoulder, looked at me from behind her back with her huge eyes full of tears. And in that childish gaze, with each passing month, I saw less and less love, and more of a frightening fear and complete alienation. For my own daughter, I was gradually, methodically turning into a source of danger, into some unstable, alien, perpetually agitated woman who talked loudly and tried to disrupt their perfect, closed, safe world where only Grandma Martha ruled. Attempts to change the situation through my husband led only to new, deep scars on our relationship. Brian returned home late in the evening, completely immersed in his financial reports, charts, and yield graphs. For him, our house was a quiet, perfect harbor, the cleanliness and comfort of which were so skillfully maintained by his mother. He did not see, and did not want to see, the flip side of this comfort. "Brian, we need to talk, right now, this is vital." I intercepted him in the walk-in closet as he was tiredly removing his tie after another difficult flight. My voice broke into a jagged whisper, my fingers convulsively clutching the edge of my cardigan. "Your mother, she is crossing every conceivable boundary. She won't let me take a single step in this house. I want to raise my daughter myself. She is literally isolating me from Lily. Do you know that she hides the clothes I buy for the girl? Last week, I bought that beautiful yellow plaid dress, remember? I wanted Lily to wear it to our family dinner so badly, and yesterday, I found it at the very bottom of a donation box in the garage. Lily is constantly walking around in those hideous, gray, old-fashioned sweaters that Martha knits. She is turning our child into her own little copy. She is erasing me from her life." Brian sighed heavily and loudly, closed his eyes, and forcefully pinched the bridge of his nose with his fingers. This gesture had become his universal, habitual reaction to any appearance of mine in the room. In his eyes, I saw only one emotion, a dull, dead-tired boredom and irritation. "Rachel, for God's sake, start taking your pills normally again, the ones Dr. Harris prescribed." His voice was icy, saturated with a deep, sincere disappointment. "Look around you. The house is spotless. Our child is well cared for, well fed, perfectly healthy, and developing faster than her peers. My mother sacrificed her personal life, left her well-established home in another state, and has been working around the clock as our nanny, housekeeper, and cook for over 2 years for absolutely free, while you try to pull your brains together after depression. She carries everything on her shoulders, and instead of kissing her hands every day and thanking her for saving our family, you throw cheap tantrums over some rags and boxes in the garage? This is just black ingratitude, Rachel. Stop being paranoid and picking on Mom, or I'll have to hire a personal caregiver for you so you don't interfere with people living normally." Each of his words stabbed me like a poisoned needle. I realized that Brian was completely blind. Martha had built a flawless, glossy facade behind which my personal, carefully isolated hell was hidden. She was a saintly martyr to him, and I was an ungrateful, mentally unstable, perpetually whining burden who ruined everyone's life with my groundless suspicions. The stakes in this invisible game rose to an absolute maximum when Lily turned 2.5. She began to speak actively, coherently, and fluently, constructing complex sentences. And it was then that the creeping, sticky nightmare I had intuitively sensed all these long months finally took on a distinct, terrifying form of human words. It was a rare, remarkably quiet Saturday afternoon. For the first time in a long time, Martha went to the backyard to wash and hang the bed linens in the fresh air. She didn't trust the dryer, preferring to do everything the old-fashioned way. Lily and I were left alone in our spacious living room. Bright sunbeams fell through the panoramic windows onto the soft rug, where colorful wooden blocks and a construction set were neatly scattered. My heart was pounding furiously and fearfully with an insane joy. These were my precious, rare minutes of complete freedom alone with my daughter, without the vigilant, reproachful supervision of my mother-in-law. I felt as if I were escaping from prison. "Look, Lily, what a tall, beautiful tower Mommy built for you," I said gently, trying to contain the tremble in my voice, moving closer to her on my knees and holding out a bright red block to her. "Let's put a triangular roof on top, and we'll have a real castle for your dolls. Look at Mommy, sweetie." The girl suddenly froze. Her tiny, chubby fingers let go of the plastic figure. She looked at me, but there was no usual childish spontaneity or joy in her eyes. They reflected a strange, completely unchildlike, frightening, hunted fear. Lily quickly, stealthily, like a criminal, looked back at the large glass door leading to the backyard, as if panic-checking whether Grandma was coming, whether she could see her at that exact second. And then, turning back to me, she spoke quietly, but remarkably clearly, stubbornly and harshly. "You are not Mommy. You are Rachel." It felt as if all the oxygen had been instantly sucked out of the room by a powerful pump. The ground physically slid out from under my feet, my vision blurred, and a dull, heavy, rising alarm rang in my ears. I thought I had misheard, that this was a bad dream born of the remnants of my illness. "Sweetheart, what are you talking about?" My voice dropped to a hoarse, trembling whisper, and tears instantly welled up in my eyes in a burning wave. I leaned toward her with my whole body, trying to take her tiny palms into my hands to warm them. "Look at me carefully, Lily. I am your Mommy. I gave birth to you. I carried you under my heart. I love you so endlessly, so much, more than anyone else in the world." But Lily only frowned fearfully, her lips trembling. She sharply, forcefully yanked her little hands out of my palms, tightly hugged a ragged old cloth doll that my mother-in-law had given her to her chest, and literally retreated into the furthest corner of the couch, away from me, as if I were a venomous snake. "No!" she repeated stubbornly, with tears in her eyes, starting to whimper loudly. "You are bad! You are not Mommy! Grandma Martha said that you just live with us in the house because you are sick. You are an alien lady. Grandma Martha is my real Mommy. She raised me. Go away!" At that exact moment, the heavy glass door from the backyard opened with a slight, mocking creak. Martha was standing on the threshold. In her hands, she held an empty plastic laundry basket. Her cold, piercing eyes instantly, in a fraction of a second, assessed the entire disposition in the room. The crying child huddled in the corner of the couch, and me, kneeling in the middle of the rug, pale as death, with tears streaming down my cheeks in a solid torrent. A barely noticeable, smug, triumphant smirk of a predator that had cornered its prey flashed on my mother-in-law's lips for one short, imperceptible fraction of a second. But the very next moment, her face instantly transformed, taking on a grimace of the deepest, most genuine horror and panic. "Oh my God, Rachel! What are you doing to the child again?" she screamed loudly, through the whole house, dropping the basket onto the floor with a clatter and rushing rapidly toward the couch. "Lily, my little one, my droplet, run to Grandma quickly! God, the poor child, she completely terrified you with her wild eyes. How could you, Rachel?" Lily, with a loud, hysterical cry, threw herself around the neck of the approaching Martha, gripping her cashmere cardigan tightly with her fingers. My mother-in-law sat down on the couch, gently rocking her, whispering sweet words and kissing the top of her head, all while throwing direct, triumphant glances of malicious, absolute superiority at me over the child's shoulder. Written in those eyes was, "She is mine, and you lost." That evening, the moment Brian crossed the threshold of the house, dropping his briefcase in the hallway, I snapped. All that suffocating fear, humiliation, mental pain, and despair that had accumulated inside me over the long gray months erupted outward in an insane, uncontrollable, destructive torrent. It was the messiest, loudest, and most terrifying scandal in the entire history of our relationship, destroying the remnants of our marriage. Out! Get that monster to pack her bags and get out of my house this instant, do you hear me? I screamed at the top of my lungs, smashing porcelain plates from the kitchen set onto the tiled floor. The porcelain shattered with a loud, metallic ring into tiny, sharp fragments at my frightened husband's feet. She is insane! She is a monster! Brian, your saintly mother is systematically, day after day, destroying our daughter's psyche. She is drumming it into a 3-year-old child's head that I am nobody to her, that I am an alien lady, a squatter. She is stealing my daughter from me. She is erasing me from her memory, from her heart. If that witch doesn't leave this house by tomorrow morning, I swear to you, I will call the police, I will file a report for identity theft, and I will go to the press. I was gasping for air from the tears, literally shaking with a violent tremor, my fingernails digging into my palms until they bled. I was on the verge of true madness from helplessness. Martha, meanwhile, sat quietly on a chair in the furthest corner of the kitchen. She did not utter a single word in her defense, nor did she make a single gesture. She only wept silently, bitterly, pressing a small lace handkerchief to her face, looking at that moment like the most defenseless, trampled, saintly, and undeservedly offended creature on the entire planet. Her fragile shoulders trembled subtly and rhythmically, creating a perfect, masterful picture of domestic abuse against an elderly person for Brian. Brian looked at this devastation, at the fragments of our dishes on the floor, and his eyes filled with thick, furious blood. His face contorted with such a wild, uncontrollable rage that I had never seen in him in all our 8 years of life together. He took a sharp step forward, ignoring the fact that the porcelain shards were crunching and breaking under the soles of his expensive shoes, gripped my shoulders in a dead, iron vice-like hold so tightly that bruises instantly began to appear on my skin, and dragged me forcefully by force down the hallway into our bedroom. He literally threw me onto the bed and slammed the heavy oak door shut with a bang, turning the key twice in the lock from the outside. "Listen to me right now, you ungrateful, insane psychopath," he growled, leaning down low over me. His face was a centimeter away from mine. I could smell the hot scent of his breath and the alcohol he had drunk on the plane on his way home. My mother dedicated 3 years to us, 3 of the best years of her old age. She cleaned up your filth, washed your linen, and nursed your child while you lay in bed like a vegetable during your depression, unable to lift your ass. She saved this family from disgrace. And now you monster, dare to kick her out onto the street, throw plates, and stage this circus? How does your tongue even twist to say that? Brian, listen to me. She told Lily that I'm an alien. She is manipulating her. I tried to scream through suffocating sobs, grabbing the lapels of his jacket, but he sharply, with disgust, intercepted my hands and threw them back. "Shut your wretched mouth!" He barked so loudly that the glass in the wardrobe rattled, and he forcefully punched the wall right next to my head with his fist, leaving a dent in the drywall. "If you open your filthy mouth toward my mother even one more time, just one single time, we are going straight to court. I will mobilize the best law firms in the city. I will file for sole custody, take Lily, bar you from accessing her forever, and rot you away in a locked psychiatric clinic in this state. Fortunately, your medical file over the last few years is perfect for any judge. You are incompetent, Rachel. Your paranoia and selfishness have destroyed everything. Mom will stay in this house for as long as I deem necessary, even forever. And tomorrow, you are going to Dr. Harris and doubling your dosage of antidepressants until you finally lose all human semblance." The loud, dry click of the lock from the outside of the door sounded to me like a point-blank shot in the night silence. I was left locked in the dark, cold bedroom, face to face with a terrifying, final realization. I had lost on all fronts. My own husband had completely betrayed me. My only child considered me a dangerous alien lady and a mental monster, a mad parasite that was slowly, with relish, devouring my life and my personality, held absolute sway in my own home. I lay on the floor by the locked door until dawn, without moving. My tears gradually dried, leaving behind only a heavy, ringing, crystals clear, and icy fury. I understood the main tactical thing. Open warfare, shouting, and throwing plates would destroy me. They only handed them weapons to use against me. To defeat this terrifying enemy, I needed to completely change my strategy. I needed to become cleverer, more patient, more secretive, and more ruthless than Martha. I needed to make them believe that they had won, that I was broken and subjugated, and then they would lose their vigilance. On Monday morning, I emerged from the bedroom a completely different person. The internal tears had completely dried up, leaving behind only a cold, calculating intellect and a dead, ringing silence. I walked up to the bathroom mirror, turned on the freezing water, washed my face for a long time, and then applied a thick layer of concealer to hide the dark circles under my eyes and the bruises on my shoulders left by Brian's iron grip. I brushed my hair carefully, gathered it into a strict bun, and pulled a rehearsed, submissive, slightly apologetic smile onto my face. This was my mask, my battle camouflage. I slowly went down to the kitchen. Life was already in full swing there. Martha was humming some sugary, old-fashioned tune at the stove, flipping fluffy pancakes, while Brian gloomily drank black coffee, his eyes glued to the screen of his work tablet. There wasn't a single trace left on the floor of the nighttime devastation I had caused. My mother-in-law had already managed to wash, clean, and wipe everything perfectly, once again securing her status as a silent, saintly martyr. "Brian, Martha," I said quietly, my voice trembling slightly, stopping like an orphan at the threshold and lowering my eyes to the floor. They both turned to me simultaneously. My husband's gaze was wary, heavy, and angry, ready to break into another shout at any second. In my mother-in-law's eyes, for a fraction of a second, a barely noticeable, deep, smugly triumphant spark flashed, which was immediately hidden behind the mask of her usual compassion. "I want to ask for your forgiveness," I continued quietly, with a breathy gasp, clenching my fingers. "Last night, it was terrible. I am terribly, unspeakably ashamed of my behavior. You are absolutely right. I feel that I haven't fully recovered after giving birth. Hormones and extreme fatigue took over my mind again. Martha, please forgive me if you can. You do so much for this house, for Lily, and I behaved like an ungrateful monster. Brian, I agree. I will go to Dr. Harris any day. I will take any medications and increase the dose as you say. I just want peace to be in our house again." Brian let out a loud, relieved wheeze through his nose. The tension in his broad shoulders instantly vanished. He rose from his chair, walked over to me in 2 strides, and hugged me tightly, almost possessively, around the waist, kissing the top of my head. "Now that's my sensible, smart Rachel," he muttered calculatedly, and those condescending notes appeared in his voice again. "I told you, honey, that you were just overworked. You need to totally relax and trust the professionals. Mom, you forgive her, don't you? We'll just forget this foolish incident, right?" Martha set the pan aside, wiped her hands thoroughly on a snow-white kitchen towel, and walked over to me with an expression of the deepest, almost divine forgiveness on her face. She hugged me over Brian's arms, and when her dry, thin fingers began to stroke my back, the suffocating, concentrated smell of lavender and powder almost turned me inside out. But I endured. I didn't flinch with a single facial muscle. "Well, of course, my poor girl. Of course I forgive everything," my mother-in-law cooed tenderly, as if to a gravely ill child. "I understand everything perfectly well. Your illness is such a difficult, terrible trial for a young woman. I don't hold any grudge against you, heavens. We are one family, one blood, and our common, most important task is to raise baby Lily in love, absolute peace and harmony. Just don't worry like that anymore. Save your nerves. Grandma Martha will take care of everything." They bought it. They unconditionally believed in my submission. They decided that the nighttime heavy pressure had definitively broken my core, subjugated my will to their rules, and turned me into a weaponless, obedient shadow, ready to accept the role of a decoration in my own home. And this very blind faith in their boundless power became their main, fatal mistake. They lost their vigilance. The next 3 months turned into an exhausting, daily psychological marathon for me. I behaved like a perfect, quiet ghost. With a meek smile, I unconditionally conceded to Martha her exclusive right to feed, bathe, and dress Lily for walks. I obediently, without a single word of objection, went to my room on the upper floor at her very first soft, veiled demand, like, "Rachel, dear, we are going to learn poems now. You will only distract the girl. Go rest." I regularly created the illusion for Brian that I was obediently and regularly taking all the powerful psychotropic drugs that his pocket doctor, Dr. Harris, prescribed for me in tons. In reality, every evening I quietly hid the pills under my tongue and then flushed them down the toilet, completely returning a crystal clarity, cold sharpness, and colossal concentration of attention to my mind. The illness was no more. There was a pure, concentrated survival strategy. While they celebrated their easy victory, I acted, calculating my every step 10 moves ahead. I perfectly clearly understood that the words of a 3-year-old child, even the most terrifying ones, would have absolutely no legal weight in court or with Child Protective Services. Brian, with his money, connections, and army of lawyers, would instantly expose me as an insane liar who had suffered another severe relapse of postpartum psychosis. I needed hard, irrefutable, material and technical evidence. An ironclad compromise that could not be disputed, distorted, or written off as a figment of my imagination. Using my old personal savings from landscaping projects, which were kept in a separate bank account that Brian never had access to, I secretly ordered a state-of-the-art miniature hidden camera online through a friend's dummy account. It was a high-tech, tiny device cleverly disguised as an ordinary, completely unremarkable black AC adapter for a mobile phone charger. Inside its body was hidden a microscopic lens, invisible to the eye, and a sensitive microphone with a noise suppression system. The camera operated completely silently, filmed in full HD format even in complete darkness, thanks to infrared illumination, and, most importantly, automatically uploaded all video recordings via an encrypted Wi-Fi channel to my remote cloud storage, the password to which only I knew. Choosing the perfect moment when Martha took Lily for a scheduled examination to our pediatrician on the other side of the city, and Brian was at an important conference in Chicago, I proceeded to install the electronic spy. I walked into my daughter's nursery, which I had once painted with my own hands. My heart was heavy, but my hands acted precisely. I plugged the adapter into the most inconspicuous outlet near the baseboard, right opposite Lily's wooden toddler bed. The view turned out to be perfect. The frame fully captured the entire room, the play rug, Martha's rocking chair, and my daughter's bed itself. The camera looked like a forgotten phone charger that no one would ever pay attention to. The trap was set and camouflaged. I just had to hide and wait for the predator to manifest its true, insane essence. Every evening, after waiting for Brian to fall fast asleep after his workday, I quietly slipped like a mouse into the bathroom, locked the door, turned on a strong flow of water to mask the sounds, and with a sinking heart and trembling fingers, opened the hidden application on my phone. I reviewed the video recordings made by the camera during the current day. What I saw and heard on the smartphone screen made my hair stand on end with horror, and my fingernails dug into my palms until they bled. This wasn't ordinary grandmotherly whims, extremes in upbringing, or excessive spoiling. It was a systematic, cold-blooded, daily destruction of a child's psyche, a methodical survival of me from the consciousness of my daughter. Martha acted like a professional cult recruiter. The camera captured dozens of terrifying episodes of psychological abuse. Here is one of the recordings, made on a rainy Tuesday. Martha is sitting in the rocking chair, cradling a sobbing Lily on her lap, who just can't fall asleep, and monotonously, in a quiet, soothing, almost hypnotic voice, whispers in her ear, "Shh, quiet, my droplet, my little copy. Don't cry. Your mommy Rachel is a very bad, evil person. She is gravely sick in her head. She never wanted you to be born. She asked the doctors to take you away. She constantly shouts at Grandma. She wants to cause harm to you and me, to lock us in a dark basement. Remember, Lily, you must listen to and love only me. If you accidentally call her mommy, she will get angry and take you to a scary, cold place where there are no toys. Who is your real mommy? Come on, tell Grandma. Grandma Martha, the 3-year-old child babbled fearfully, sniffling, snuggling against her chest. Smart girl, my sweet baby. Our secret. Don't tell anyone about this, especially Daddy, okay? Otherwise, Rachel will destroy our world. On another video recording, made a week later, I saw an even wilder scene. I remembered how on that day, secretly from my mother-in-law, I had bought a beautiful, expensive handmade doll in a fluffy blue dress for Lily, which my daughter had dreamed of for so long, and left it on her table. The recording clearly showed Martha walking into the empty nursery, seeing the doll, her face contorting with malice. She takes the toy, walks over to Lily, and demonstratively, right before the eyes of the frightened child, begins to forcefully rip the plastic fingers off the doll and tear the dress. Look at what Rachel did, Martha says to the crying daughter in an icy voice. She brought this doll to break your tiny fingers when you were asleep. See how evil she is? Grandma's going to throw this monster into a trash bag right now, and tomorrow you and I will secretly go to the store and buy the best, kindest doll that your real mommy chooses. Deal? Every such video, every frame of this madness was carefully, with cold calculation, saved by me in 3 different encrypted folders on a remote server. My secret flash drive in the pocket of my old coat was gradually filling up with pure, concentrated, irrefutable proof of my mother-in-law's mental deformity. I endured this hell inside myself for a whole 3 months. I clenched my teeth so hard they ground down, I forced myself to smile sweetly at Martha at breakfast, serve her coffee, and thank her for her care. I knew that I needed to accumulate a critical, killer mass of evidence so that neither Brian, nor his highly paid lawyers, nor the judges would have a single chance, not the slightest loophole, to wriggle out or write it off as family troubles. I was waiting for the perfect, strategic moment to deliver a single, crushing, and final blow from which they would not be able to recover. And that moment arrived on Lily's birthday. She was turning exactly 3 years old. The long-awaited Saturday arrived, Lily's birthday. Our huge house was transformed again. Colorful garlands and balloons hung everywhere, and a large buffet table was set on the terrace. We threw a beautiful party, inviting Brian's colleagues from the financial firm with their wives, a few of our neighbors from down the street, and a couple of married couples with small children, so Lily would have someone to play with. All through this long day, Martha literally shone, being at the absolute epicenter of everyone's attention. She was flawless. She had personally baked her famous 3-tiered blueberry pie, the recipe for which was allegedly kept in her family for generations. With a radiant, aristocratic smile, she accepted ecstatic compliments from the guests, was touched by every gift, led choruses with the children on the grass, and fluttered around the house like an ideal, loving, indispensable head of a huge, happy family. Brian was literally glowing with pride for his mother. He kept hugging her by the shoulders in front of his colleagues, saying loudly, "My mom Martha manages everything. She is the true heart of our home, our savior." I, however, consciously stayed deep in the shadows the entire evening. I smiled quietly and politely at the guests, carried around refreshing drinks, cleared away empty glasses, and obediently, mutely played my role of the recovering, quiet, and submissive wife after a severe illness. Not a single person among the guests at the party could even closely, even in a nightmare, imagine what a horrific, blood-chilling drama was unfolding right now inside these snow-white walls. By 10 o'clock in the evening, the exhausted guests finally began to disperse. The noise subsided, and a cool darkness descended on the suburb. Our daughter was thoroughly overstimulated by the abundance of emotions, new toys, and attention. She began to be cranky and rub her eyes. Brian, who had drunk quite a lot of expensive wine at the festive dinner to relax after a hard work week, could barely stand on his feet from fatigue and alcohol. Rachel, honey, I'm going upstairs to lie down. My head is just splitting from this music, he mumbled indistinctly, stumbling on the first step of the massive wooden staircase. Mom, won't you help put Lily to bed? I'm completely out of it. Of course, son, go rest, my mother-in-law responded tenderly, with maternal affection, patting him on the shoulder. I'll put our little birthday girl to bed myself. It's only a joy for me. And Rachel can quietly clear the remaining dishes in the kitchen for now and turn off the light on the terrace. I nodded silently, submissively, without uttering a word. My husband walked heavily upstairs to our bedroom, and within a couple of minutes, his steady, deep, and heavy snoring echoed from behind the closed door. Martha carefully took Lily in her arms, pressed her close, and slowly, with royal dignity, carried her to the nursery on the second floor. The festive facade instantly crumbled, and an ominous, dead, and heavy silence reigned in the house. I was left completely alone in the huge, empty kitchen. Mountains of dirty plates, champagne glasses, the remains of the birthday cake with 3 small candles burnt down to the base, and piles of torn wrapping paper piled up all around on the granite countertops. My hands automatically, on autopilot, washed the crystal wine glasses under the tap, but my thoughts were infinitely far away. I was calculating the details of my escape tomorrow. My folder in the cloud storage was full to overflowing. There was more than enough evidence. It was time to make a decisive, deadly move. Accidentally reaching for another dirty cup on the bar counter, I caught the plastic body of the baby monitor, which had been standing there since yesterday, with the wide sleeve of my domestic sweater. The device shifted from the light push, the power button was pressed, and the unit turned on with a quiet electrical click. The small LED indicators on the panel blinked with a steady green light, establishing a stable audio connection with the nursery upstairs. And at that very same moment, the quiet, whistling, frighteningly tender, and incredy voice of Martha echoed from the speaker of the device through the entire empty kitchen. From that sound, everything inside me instantly turned over. My heart skipped a beat, and icy goosebumps ran across my skin. It was that same eerie monologue that I had already heard on the recordings, but now it was sounding live, right here, in real time, broadcasting from my child's room. Your real mommy is too weak, stupid, and sick, Lily, my mother-in-law cooed quietly, with relish, and in her old voice there was a kind of insane, fanatical, and triumphant intoxication with her own power. She doesn't love you at all, my girl. She never wanted you. I am your real, only mommy. Remember that always, until the end of your days. And that woman, Rachel, she is just living with us in the same house out of charity, temporarily. Soon, Daddy and I will throw her out forever, and it will be just the two of us. You are my little droplet, my perfect copy. Grandma will make you happy. I stood in the middle of the kitchen with a crystal wine glass in my hand, frozen like a stone statue. The water from the tap continued to rustle, flooding the sink, but I heard nothing except this soul-chilling whisper. All that terrifying mosaic of strangeness, understatements, cold glances, hidden clothes, and the inexplicable, wild alienation of my daughter, which I had been gathering piece by piece for the last 2 years, instantly and definitively fell into one clear, monstrous picture. This woman wasn't just helping us. She was systematically, day after day, like an insidiously clever mental parasite, eating away my soul, destroying my connection with my daughter, drumming a severe, destructive delirium into a 3-year-old child. My cold intellect, which I had so carefully preserved all these months, switched off in a single second. Strategy was replaced by a pure, primal, furious maternal instinct. I threw the wineglass into the sink with all my might. The expensive crystal shattered into thousands of small fragments with a loud crash, and on uncooperative, cotton-like legs, breathing heavily, I rushed up the stairs. I threw open the heavy door to the nursery with a crash, using all my strength. The room was in semi-darkness, lit only by a dim nightlight in the shape of a small moon on the wall, casting long, distorted, and ugly shadows onto the ceiling. Martha was sitting in the wooden rocking chair right by Lily's crib. Hearing the deafening crash of the door, she didn't even flinch, her body didn't move. She slowly, with an icy, regal calm, turned her pale face to me and smiled coldly, triumphantly, with just the corners of her lips. On her lap lay the large, heavy, dark blue, velvet-bound first photo album of Lily, the very album that I had assembled with such incredible love, tenderness, and trepidation from the very first day of her appearance in the world. I had personally pasted her first pictures from the hospital there, the ribbon from the discharge, pictures of her first timid smile, first teeth, and first steps on the rug. I flew at her like a fury, not remembering myself from rage, tore the heavy album out of her hands with one sharp movement, and forcefully clicked the switch, flooding the room with a bright, eye-straining overhead light. Little Lily in her crib screamed fearfully, having woken up, and covered her face with her small hands. But what I saw on the open pages of the album caused me to let out a muffled cry of the deepest disgust and primal horror. Martha had gone through our entire family photo archive with scissors and a razor blade. On absolutely every single joint photograph where I held the newborn Lily in my arms in the hospital room, where I smiled happily next to her stroller in the garden, where Brian and I blew out the candle on her first year of life, my face was neatly, with surgical precision, cut out along the very contour with a sharp blade. Gap-toothed holes gaped in place of my face, and into these holes, Martha had carefully, with maniacal precision, pasted her own old photographs from her youth using old glue. These were yellowed color and black and white pictures from 30 years ago, where she, being approximately my current age, had a similar silhouette, oval face, hairstyle, and hair color. She was literally rewriting the history of our family on a physical, material level. She was creating a new visual reality for a growing, impressionable child in which I, her mother, never existed in nature. In this distorted, insane universe, Lily had been held in arms, fed, and raised from birth by only one single woman, the young Martha Miller. You insane beast! You sick psychopath! I wheezed, suffocating from tears, the furious beating of my heart, and the physical nausea rising to my throat, poking a trembling finger at the mutilated, mangled pages of the album. Get out of my house! Out! Right now, this very second, I am calling the police, Child Protective Services, and a psychiatric ambulance. They will lock you in a cage, you monster. Martha rose slowly, gracefully from her chair, without a single extra movement. There wasn't a drop of fear, a drop of shame or confusion in her eyes. Only the icy, ruthless superiority of a predator that knows for certain that the entire situation is under its complete control. She leisurely adjusted the folds of her impeccable cardigan, crossed her arms over her chest, and said quietly, almost haughtily, "Call them, dear. Call whoever you like. Who do you think will believe an insane woman with chronic, severe postpartum depression, who in another wild fit of paranoia cut up the albums herself with scissors just to accuse her saintly, loving mother-in-law? Brian is entirely on my side. Lily is on my side. The court medical documents are on my side. You are nobody here, Rachel. Your husband will commit you to a psychiatric clinic himself tomorrow morning, and your wretched spirit won't be in this house anymore." At that very moment, Brian, awakened by the screams, ran into the nursery, stumbling, breathing heavily, and rubbing his sleepy eyes. Right before his eyes, in one single moment, a perfect, masterful performance unfolded, one that Martha had obviously rehearsed in detail in her head over many long nights. She instantly shrank, diminished in size, trembled all over her body, her face contorting in a false, mortal terror, and she fell back into the chair with loud, theatrical sobs, covering her face with her hands. "Brian! Brian, son, my God, save me! Help!" she wailed, choking on her tears and catching her breath. She burst in like a madwoman, with wild eyes, started screaming terrifying things, tore the album away and herself, right before my eyes, started wildly cutting up all our photographs with scissors. She is screaming that I am a witch, that I want to take her baby away. She is delirious, Brian. I am terrified for the little one. She is dangerous for our girl. She is incompetent. Do something. Brian looked at his sobbing, hysterical old mother, then turned his heavy gaze, filling with rage, upon me. heavy breathing, disheveled, with eyes wild from pain and holding the torn velvet album in my hands. In his gaze, I saw the final, irrevocable, and mortal sentence to our marriage and our entire past life. "I told you," my husband said in an icy, completely alien tone, saturated with deep disgust, taking a step toward me and forcefully wrenching the album from my fingers. "You've had another psychosis, Rachel. Your paranoia has crossed every conceivable boundary. Tomorrow at 8 in the morning, we are going to the clinic, and you are checking in for involuntary, long-term treatment under lock and key. Enough. My mother's torments in this house are over once and for all." At that very second, when Brian uttered those icy, terrifying words, something finally switched inside me. The panic, wild rage, and pain that had been raging in my chest instantly subsided, giving way to an absolutely transparent, ringing, cosmic emptiness and cold calculation. I looked at my husband, at his face contorted with disgust. I looked at Martha, who continued to tremble subtly in the chair, secretly covering her smug, triumphant eyes with her palms. If I were to start screaming now, throwing tantrums, pointing at the hidden camera or the baby monitor, I would have definitively confirmed their diagnosis in Brian's eyes. He would have simply confiscated my phone, destroyed all the evidence, and I would have lost Lily forever, ending up locked in a madhouse. We needed to win time. Just one day. I slowly lowered my hands. My face relaxed, the wild gleam in my eyes died out, my shoulders dropped submissively and helplessly, and obedient, copious, false tears of deep repentance and panic flowed from my eyes. I played the only card I had left, the card of total, absolute surrender. "Forgive me," I whispered quietly, barely audibly, in a broken voice, my legs buckling and falling to my knees right onto the rug in front of Brian. "Forgive me, please. I don't know what came over me." Such a grim, black blackout washed over me. These flashes in my head, they terrify me to death. "Martha, for heaven's sake, forgive me. I didn't mean to. I didn't know what I was doing." "Brian, you are absolutely right. I need serious treatment. I agree to any clinic, to any dosage of medication, to anything. Just don't take my daughter away from me. Don't separate us so cruelly. Please, let me stay home at least until Monday morning. I just want to spend these last few hours with her, to hold her hand. I will sit quietly." My husband let out a loud, relieved, and deep wheeze through his nose. All the aggression and rigidity in his figure instantly vanished. He looked down at me with a disgusted, arrogant pity, the kind shown to a sick, beaten stray dog. "Get up off the floor. You are disgusting to look at," he spat out dryly and dismissively. "It's good that you at least now, on the edge of the abyss, admit your complete incompetence. Until Monday morning, you stay locked in your room on the upper floor. You do not step a single foot near Lily without my mother's direct permission. And on Monday at 8 in the morning, I will personally drive you to Dr. Harris, and we will check you into the inpatient facility. End of discussion." From the dark corner of the room came a quiet, barely noticeable sigh of relief from Martha. A fleeting, smug smile of absolute, final triumph played on her thin lips. They 100% believed that they had crushed me, destroyed my personality, and broken the spine of my resistance. They decided that I was completely in their power. They were celebrating a victory. But they fatally underestimated a mother whose only child they were trying to take away. I spent the next 48 hours in the mode of a perfect, silent, practically invisible shadow. I sat submissively in my room on the upper floor, left exclusively to use the restroom, quietly accepted the trays of food that Martha brought me, and completely, uncomplainingly obeyed her every verbal command. Brian, completely reassured by my total submissiveness and silence, quietly drove to his office in the city center on Sunday morning. He urgently needed to close a complex quarterly report before the arrival of the board of directors. He was 1,000,000% sure that the entire situation was under the iron, flawless control of his saintly mother. As soon as my husband's heavy SUV disappeared around the corner of our quiet street, I realized this was my only, unique, and last chance for salvation. There would not be another. I quickly, silently descended the stairs into the living room. In the kitchen, Martha was enthusiastically brewing herself morning coffee, standing with her back to the hallway and humming her tune. I had to act with the speed of lightning. While she was distracted, I flew up to the second floor, darted into the nursery, and with a swift, precise movement, yanked the hidden adapter camera out of the outlet by the baseboard and hid it at the very bottom of my large travel bag. Into the same bag, between documents, went the mutilated velvet photo album, which Brian had unwisely left on the dresser. These were my main, killer material evidences. My passport and Lily's passport, which I had secretly stolen from Brian's home safe a month ago while he was sleeping, were sent to the same destination. I didn't pack suitcases. I didn't pack clothes, shoes, or my expensive jewelry. I left absolutely everything, all material values, branded things, everything that could take up time or attract the attention of the vigilant Martha. Only the most necessary things: documents, the hidden camera, the album, my wallet, and my phone. Life was at stake. I walked over to the crib, quickly took the surprised Lily in my arms, pressed her close, and covered her with my coat. "Rachel? What are you doing in the nursery?" Suddenly, a suspicious, sharp, and incready voice of my mother-in-law echoed from the stairs. Her rapid, heavy footsteps were heard. She was coming upstairs, having sensed something amiss. I ran out into the hallway, colliding with Martha face to face right on the upper landing by the stairs. "Where do you think you are going with the child, you trash?" Her eyes instantly narrowed, turning into two slits, and her soft voice vanished, replaced by a serpentine, furious hissing. She tried to block my path with her body, stretching out her long, dry fingers with sharp nails, trying to tear Lily away from me. "Get out of the way, Martha, now!" I said, absolutely calmly, firmly, without a trace of my former fear or respect, looking her straight in the pupils. "Your insane movie is over!" I shoved her aside with all my might with my shoulder. Martha flew against the wall, not expecting such toughness, and I literally flew down the steps, dashed through the front door onto the driveway, ran to my car, sat the frightened, starting to cry Lily into her child car seat, and locked all the electronic door locks on the spot. I jumped behind the wheel and started the powerful engine. Through the side-tinted window, I saw Martha, disheveled and pale, rush out onto the porch of the house. Her face was contorted with a wild, uncontrollable animal malice. She was screaming something wild and furious after me, shaking her fists, and trying frantically with trembling fingers to dial Brian's number on her phone. I pressed the gas pedal to the floor with all my might. The wheels of my car peeled out with a loud screech, leaving long black streaks of burnt rubber on the clean asphalt. We sped away at high speed into complete unknown, leaving behind 3 years of a suffocating nightmare. 2 hours later, I was already sitting in the austere, cold office of one of the best, most expensive, and authoritative family law attorneys in our state. The elderly, gray-haired lawyer in an impeccable three-piece suit listened carefully, without interrupting, to my long, emotional, and disjointed story, only occasionally shaking his head. A clear, professional skepticism was initially readable on his face. He had heard thousands of stories about horrible mothers-in-law and family grievances over his 40-year practice. Besides, the legal advantage was not on my side. "Listen to me carefully, Mrs. Miller," the attorney sighed, slowly removing his gold-rimmed glasses and carefully wiping them with a handkerchief. "Your official medical file, your prolonged postpartum depression, visits to a psychiatrist, your husband, with his financial capabilities and a strong team of lawyers, will easily prove to any judge that you are mentally unstable, prone to fantasies and paranoia. We don't need your words. We need weighty, ironclad legal grounds to trigger an emergency divorce procedure and totally restrict the father and grandmother in their rights to the child. The word of a 3-year-old child against the testimony of 2 respected, wealthy citizens is an empty sound in court." "Take a look at this," I calmly interrupted him, laying out a small black flash drive, the hidden adapter camera, and opening my laptop on the polished table. "And take a look at this too." I connected the flash drive and turned on the files from the hidden camera in the nursery. On the large monitor screen, a panorama of 3 months of covert mental abuse unfolded in perfect resolution. From the laptop speakers, the incrady, whistling voice of Martha resounded clearly, loudly, with all its frightening inflections, breaking the child's psyche and drumming a terrifying, destructive delirium into a 3-year-old girl about a sick, evil, and alien mother. The attorney watched video recording after video recording, his eyebrows crawling up, his face gradually paling, and his jaw clenching with rage. Then, I silently opened the mutilated velvet album before him, where photographs of my young mother-in-law flaunted instead of my face. A long, heavy, graveyard silence hung in the office. The lawyer slowly, carefully closed the album, leaned back in his leather chair, and looked at me with a completely different, hard, collected, professional, and deeply respectful gaze. "This is not just a family quarrel or jealousy, Rachel. This is a deliberate, intentional, and systematic destruction of a minor child's psyche by a group of individuals. This is a criminal offense in certain aspects. We will destroy them in court, to smithereens. They will never get custody over Lily again in this life. Guaranteed." The trial was closed to the press, but it became a crushing biblical rout for my pursuers. Brian appeared at the first hearing with his mother, behaving extremely confidently, arrogantly, and casually. He glanced across the table at me with a smirk, being 1,000,000% sure of his complete, unmitigated legal victory, and that I would be sent to a clinic today. Martha again put on her favorite mask of a modest, quiet, deeply offended, and trampled elderly woman. We brought the hammer down. When my attorney, without further ado, projected the recordings from our hidden camera and high-quality scans of the mutilated photo albums onto a huge screen right in the middle of the courtroom, their entire defense, their status, and their self-confidence shattered into dust in the first 5 minutes. A dead, suffocating silence fell over the courtroom, interrupted only by Martha's voice from the speakers. Brian sat pale as chalk, large beads of sweat breaking out on his forehead. He shifted, a wild, bewildered, terror-filled gaze from the screen to his mother, realizing what an abyss they were flying into. At that moment, his entire blind, fanatical faith in his saintly golden mother collapsed with a crash, burying beneath the rubble the remnants of his authority, career, and pride. Martha, for the first time in her life, completely, totally lost control over her behavior. Realizing that her sophisticated game was exposed and the mask of an angel was torn off before the law, she jumped up from her seat. Her face turned into a shriveled, hideous mask of rage. She began to screech wildly, on ultrasound, spewing terrifying curses in my direction, pounding her dry fists on the table, and in an insane impulse tried to pounce on me and my lawyer right before the eyes of the stunned judge. She was tightly pinned by 3 hefty bailiffs, handcuffed, and led out of the hall by her arms. This incident was officially entered into the court record, definitively defining her mental status. The judge delivered an unambiguous, crushing verdict. Brian was completely, totally stripped of the right to joint custody over his daughter. He was allowed only rare, 2-hour visits with Lily twice a month, strictly in the presence of state social workers at a special center. But most importantly, the court issued an official, permanent restraining order against Martha Miller. She is legally barred, under penalty of immediate criminal arrest and actual imprisonment, from approaching me, my home, my work, and Lily closer than 500 meters. Our victory was absolute. Now my daughter and I live 1,500 kilometers away from our former nightmare, in a small, quiet, sun-drenched town on the very coast of the ocean. We have changed absolutely everything in our lives. Phone numbers, addresses, email, car license plates, habits, and surroundings. It took more than a year of painstaking, hard, daily work with the best child clinical psychologists and art therapists to carefully, gently, layer by layer, cleanse from Lily's young, traumatized consciousness that mental poison that Grandma Martha had poured into her. But a few months ago, the miracle occurred for which I went through this hell, endured every second of my humiliation, and sat on my knees before my traitor husband. Lily was running merrily across a green lawn in a city park, enthusiastically chasing a large soap bubble. She stumbled over a tree root, fell onto the pavement, and scraped her knee painfully. She froze for a second, her lips trembled, and then she raised her large blue eyes, full of tears, to me, stretched out her tiny hands to me, and shouted loudly, clearly, through the whole park, "Mommy! Mommy, it hurts! Help me, Mommy!" I ran to her, fell to my knees before her, held her tightly, tightly to my chest, inhaling the clean scent of her hair, and wept with a heart-bursting, cleansing happiness. At that moment, I definitively, 100% understood. I had returned my child. I am her real, only mother again. The nightmare was over. What do you think? Did Rachel do the right thing by pretending to be submissive and secretly gathering evidence from the hidden camera, instead of trying once more to talk to her husband, open his eyes to his mother, and save their family? Or should she have handled this nightmare inside the house, without taking it to a harsh, scandalous court and destroying the marriage? Share your honest opinion in the comments below. I read absolutely all of your feedback. This story is just one of many where justice prevails. If you want more spine-chilling dramas, subscribe to our channel and become part of the Storytime drama community. See you in the next video. Bye!